1988, that was the original year of introduction for this fragrance. I was just 1 year old at the time. Obviously didn't know much about fragrance. Today, on the other hand, I have worn this fragrance numerous occasions over the past years. I've grown to love this fragrance, and it's one of those fragrances that if you're serious about fragrance and perfumes in general, you gotta respect it, because it's one of those fragrances that made the house of Christian Dior as popular as it is today, and it's probably one of those that actually made it possible for the house of Christian Dior to produce new fragrances based on the success and earnings from this fragrance. They have consistently brought us new stuff. It's one that's still available today, more than 30 years after its original introduction. We're going to talk about Fahrenheit, none other than the original Fahrenheit. There's been some flankers of this fragrance over the years. You have a Fahrenheit Aqua, which is an oceanic, a watery, a citrusy, brighter variation on the original, but it's also quite floral. So don't go blind by that, thinking it's going to be an Acqua di Gio of Fahrenheit, because it's definitely still very floral, and as I recall, it's still quite heavy on the musks and so on. So it's not that fresh, but you got that variation. You also have this one, which is currently discontinued. Unfortunately, this is Fahrenheit Absolute, and this is all about myrrh and incense. This is quite balsamic. It has some amber in here. It's very warm, and it's a very nice fragrance for the fall and winter time, actually. But unfortunately, they discontinued this one. So yeah, I don't really know why they did it. But we are going to talk about this one, the original Fahrenheit, the Eau de Toilette. As you can see on the left, we have the older style of bottle. It has a different cap, and the inscription is different. The lettering is different. Even the style of the bottle, if you can see on the bottom here, it's a little different. This one is from 2013, and this is still how it is looking right now. If you go out and buy a new bottle, this is what you will end up with. Not so much difference on the bottom. You just have a badge code, and it says Christian Dior, Eau de Toilette, and so on. If you ask me, this is a really nice bottle design. Nothing too extraordinary about it, but it just looks great. The sprayer works really well on this, and yeah, it's just amazing. But let's start off with a little bit of background on this fragrance. It's a woody, floral, musky fragrance, and the perfumers behind the Fahrenheit are Jean-Louis Sieuzac and Michel Almayrac. So these two gentlemen, I don't really know much about them, so we're not going to go into detail. The top notes are lavender, mandarin orange, hawthorn, nutmeg flowers, cedar, bergamot, chamomile, and lemon. And then in the mid, we have nutmeg, honeysuckle, carnation, sandalwood, violet leaf, jasmine, lily of the valley, and cedar. And in the base, we have leather, tonka bean, amber, patchouli, vetiver, and musk. So wow, that's a mouthful. Now I will go into some of the things that are for me predominant in describing this fragrance, because if we have to go into depth, we can be stuck here for a couple of hours. If you spray Fahrenheit for the first time, a lot of people talk about that gasoline, gasoline vibe, and lots of leather. Well, obviously this is predominantly a leather-based fragrance, but as the Fragrantica page lists, it's definitely also floral and musky. It has a lot of aromatics, as you have probably heard in the notes. It has a lot of those classic spicy, fresh aromatic notes that you find in barbershop fragrances of the time. If you think about, for instance, Rive Gauche, it has some elements from this fragrance. It came a little bit later than Fahrenheit, but the lavender is very present in this fragrance. There's definitely a burst of citruses at the top, but you get, you know, a lot of those base notes right away. The violet leaf is also something that really gives this fragrance that edge, and the leather itself is extremely well done to me. I don't get anything, you know, petrol-ish or burnt or tarry or out of the ordinary, really. I just get a beautiful burst of leather with some floral notes lingering through, and the aromatics as well. This fragrance is just one of those classic masculine fragrances that I've grown to love. I just can't see a woman wear this, although it's quite a well blended fragrance. It just has something masculine to me. Tonka bean, don't really get too hung up on that note if you heard it in the description. A lot of current fragrances that are that have tonka bean in the composition are very heavy on that specific note, which will be listed on the ingredients as coumarin most of the time. Coumarin can be very overwhelming, and in Fahrenheit it's in there, but it's not taking the upper hand for the better. You know, I don't really think they would have made this any better adding a sweet synthetic coumarin to the composition. The patchouli as well is something that really gives it a full body, a very warm and yeah, interesting overall feel. Other notes that really got my attention were the vetiver, the geranium, the cedar, and the musk. And it's just the whole composition that really smells very pleasant. One of those fragrances a lot of people think it's off-putting, it's very hard to wear, but to me, if you give it another chance, you might really start to see what it's all about, especially when this fragrance starts to dry down and you get a little bit of that amber as well in the dry down, and some of the harshness from the initial opening. When that starts to mellow down just enough to let the other notes really warm up the composition, the amber, the patchouli, and so on, that's really where the magic happens for me. I get great longevity, great projection with this fragrance, even with this current formulation. I don't expect them to have changed it again since 2013 when I got this bottle. I've used quite a lot of it considering the overall collection that I have built. This is the older style, and I really can't see too much difference in the overall composition. So as far as reformulations go, I think they did quite a good job. Obviously, there will be trained noses and experts that will tell you that this fragrance was butchered and it's not the same anymore. Probably so, because with every reformulation there will be some certain original natural notes or ingredients that will be banned, and they have to replace it with synthetics. But to me, they have done a really good cracking job on this, preserving the original DNA of Fahrenheit, and even longevity and projection are still great today. It might be just a tad fresher overall, but that's also probably because this bottle is more than 20 years newer than this bottle. So older bottles will always go a little bit more heavy on the base notes in the composition. The top notes are the first to fade as a bottle ages. A lot of you know that. So all in all, a great scent. I just couldn't pass up on reviewing this on the channel and give you my honest opinion. advise you to not skip out on this fragrance. If you've never tried it and you're serious about fragrances and you want to get some new ideas, some new experiences, don't skip out on this one, as well as many others from the 80s like the original Arami, like Kouros. Give those fragrances a chance. They are, for me, they are what fragrances are all about. Individual expression. This one is very bold, but at the same time it's very warm, and I would even say it's a little bit romantic, especially in that dry down. Would consider this to be an excellent date night scent, but still it's very warm, and I really love this a lot. So guys, how do you feel about Fahrenheit by Dior? What is your favorite fragrance by this house? And let me know in the comment sections. I would love to hear your feedback. Catch you guys in the next time, guys. Bye bye.